Hey everyone, this is Mike Gormley of the Mike Gormley Show, conveniently enough. I have some folks with me today who are presently uh, going under the name of Bearing All, which is therefore a new band with a new album. And it's, but they've been around for a while. The album's called There Goes My Compass. That's a weird enough name to figure out right there. But um, so we have Steve Bartek and Ira Ingber. Um, there you go. Those guys waving at you, except for the radio. And the quick background is that Steve Bartek, you'll know from Oingo Boingo and his work with Danny Elfman. And if you're really into it, his work with Strawberry Alarm Clock when he was what, 14 or something. And Ira Ingber, who has got just a long list of accomplishments. The easy one to go to is his working with Bob Dylan for a couple of years as basically musical director and put a couple of albums together. That was a while ago, and then recently Bob called and said, "So how are things?" and went from there on some other projects. But anyway, welcome guys. Good to see you.
Good to
Nice,
see you.
nice to be here.
Um, so what do you want to talk about?
Well, it was pretty noisy 4th of July out here in LA.
Yeah, it was. No, okay, so I got to ask this title of the album, There Goes My Compass. Is there a logical kind of story behind that, or is it just a name?
No, there's no logic to any of this, but it was a fragment of a lyric of one of the songs, Steve.
Yeah.
Uh,
And well, and the idea of a compass led us to visual representations of the two of them kind of fed off each other and gave us an idea of something that we could have that was substantially an image plus something related to the lyrics.
You've got
And we were completely lost. So, you know, as we did these projects.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Steve just said, I would say completely lost would be the first part of the answer. Not lost as much as we didn't have a preconceived direction. And we were the discovery of the direction is part of what this album represents. Each song being its own version of that discovery, which we can talk about in some more detail. But I think that if there's any one guiding principle, there's no guidance.
How long did it take to put all this together? Is it an old project you caught up to, or is it just, really literally brand new?
Well, it was in spare time kind of thing because we were all doing all kinds of stuff. So we made a point of getting together and experimenting. And each time we'd see it through till we felt like we had something and move on to the next one. But it would take, I mean, this is over how many years have we been working?
I think 2016 was the first beginning of the fertilization of the egg. What occurred to both Steve and I, given the other projects that we are involved with, one happens to be a band called Jackie O that we play in with two other fellows, John Avila from Oingo Boingo and David Raven from Long List of Accomplishment music history, is that, can I go a little longer for this? Because this is kind of a long.
Going, man.
I actually prepared for this, so this.
Oh my God!
If I fail, it will be.
That's more than anybody else you can hear at the moment.
Yeah, it'll be because I over prepared. So it was over 20 years ago that I found myself in Nashville. And I went to the Bluebird, like every good person should do. And I went to the writer's night. I didn't perform, I was a guest, a friend. And I had, you know how it is. They're set up in the round and they're all, they're playing each other's songs. And this one amazing song after another was performed that night. And I was thinking, yeah, it was just after 2001 or so. This form of music presentation, the pop song, it wasn't Nashville music, it was pop music. It happened to be done in Nashville, which, as we know, is no longer hasn't been country in years and years. It seemed to me it was a real lightning bolt that the pop song had gone as far as it could go, as far as I was concerned. It could not sustain the continual pounding of verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, out thing.
Guitar
Uh,
solo.
What's that?
Guitar solo.
Guitar solo, of course. How did I miss that? And it started to irritate me that here I am in the presence of, wonderful, gifted songwriters, well-crafted songs, but it was almost like they hit the wall. They couldn't go any further than that because the convention had exhausted itself, and it was no longer vital to me, to my ears. It was no longer something that I was drawn to. Hey, I can do a better song than that. And so what I did, and I shortly thereafter, I began work on what became my first solo album, with the absolute intention of getting away from that convention that was so refined in Nashville and in obviously other parts of the world. So I think that my part of bearing all, which we'll explain where that came from in a bit, was to somehow break through that boundary that I felt had stifled what had been, up to that point, 50, 60 years of the pop song that we all grew up with, that, captured millions and millions of ears and hearts forever. But it seemed like the vitality was gone. And so that was a big seed planted for me of what I wanted to do next.
And that, the word experimental, you use that, and Barry All has elements of that, a lot of that, but you also have, I think it's Arthur Murray's Dancing Pants, which we'll hear later on. That's got a fairly funky feel to it. It's a little Motown Stax R&B. I wouldn't call it experimental, except maybe to you guys.
Well,
Well,
Steve.
it was experimental for us because nothing else on the record has horns like that.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, what can we? Ira presented to me. He had started this track, and I had played something on it years ago, and he pulled it up, and we needed one more song, and said, let's put horns on it. And he mentioned picking up the pieces. I forget.
Average white
band. And so I had him sing something. So I had a guide, that's something to start with. And then I went off with it, and it became what that is. But at the same time, the track itself, we decided instead of doing a guitar solo, or we have a bass solo. And the structure of it is totally whacked because it doesn't go verse chorus. It's like, okay, the first time the horns come in, it kind of, the second time it kind of repeats, but none of the phrases are exactly the same.
Mhm.
They're moved over a beat, or they go, a couple beats longer. So there's just enough that when you're listening to it, the next time through, it's not that it's totally fresh, but it's different, and it catches your ear in a different way than the first time through, even though it reminds you of the first time. That's kind of, that's how I was thinking about it. And what was the question?
I don't know. What are you asking me for?
Mike was accused us of being normal for a second.
Yeah, there's nothing really. If you try to figure out where it repeats or comes back to a chorus, good luck.
I think that also the other part of it is the track of it was originally intended for Jackie O, our band, and for whatever reason it never got done. And so, as Steve said, we needed another song as we were nearing the end of the album. The idea that it sounds, there are many elements that sound conventional about it. It has more or less a conventional drum, more or less a conventional, like you said, Mike, a funky rhythm type thing, but everything else around it is resistant to that. And so that it doesn't play to that cliche that Steve and I really instinctively abhor, that the trodden path, the well-trodden path is just not for us. It's not for me individually. I think Steve is the same.
Although we did use, in the brass, I did use a few cliche moments, the
Oh yeah,
notes, and
actually too many. It's
yeah, and at the end, the biggest cliche is for the trumpet to go up an octave, and I kind of insisted on it. It's like you can't not have the last phrase up an
the
octave.
trumpet
You
player.
think the average listener will get all of this, or
They
is it?
won't. They won't articulate it the way we are, but they'll get that they know what that was.
Uh-huh.
And the
You
hope
hear-
is, yeah, the hope really for all of the recordings is that they reward, they demand repeated listenings, because there's a lot of stuff to take in. At the same time, hopefully it's not overwhelming to the point where it puts people off. It's supposed to be inviting enough to draw someone in for 2 or 3 listenings. One of my one of the things I learned from Bob Dylan, he has two rules, two measurements of acceptability or non-acceptability of a song. Acceptability 1, you could play that all day long. Non-acceptability 2, why would you want to hear it twice? And he's right, and he's really right. I mean, so if you go with you could play it all day long, well then our job as the creators is we have to provide the reward for the listener, make it worth their time. We're asking for non-refundable time.
Yeah, but if someone is really feeling good from a song, they're really enjoying not only the song, but it's just making them dance, making them happy. Why not play it twice or 5 times or whatever you feel like doing?
Well, no, that's the hope. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying,
but he's saying, why not repeat the phrases over and over?
why the repeat? Oh, within? Well, because there are we have to satisfy ourselves as creators.
Exactly. It's because we'd get bored.
Yeah, we this, Mike. The people who make this stuff, we have to hear this stuff thousands of times in the course of the first conception to the final mastering. And the sad truth is you never get to hear it for the first time after that. And so you keep chasing like Arthur Murray is a great example. There are parts of that song, a few of them, that make Steve laugh and I laugh. John does this bass thing every time. It makes me laugh. It's so filled with his personality. There's other parts of it. I wait to hear these things, these moments.
And as we're doing the project, there were things that, we thought it was done, and go, oh no, I need to hear more of this. And there's like individual moments that we spent time bringing them up to balance, that in the end made a difference, because things moved from one to the other the more time we put into it.
That's right. That's exactly right. There's a momentum of that stuff. There's an inevitability. One will lead to the other. I maybe it's a naive notion I have, or something wishing it was more. I think the creators of in this case music, we have a responsibility as part of the transaction with the listener. We have to make it worth their while. And I in the digital realm, it's easy to copy and paste things and repeat sections, and that just bought us another minute, but it's not, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's a fair request to ask someone to, as I said earlier, give you non-refundable time. That's the only thing humans have, is time. And so we're wanting someone to give us 4 minutes of their time. And what's the reward? Well, the reward, like you said, Mike, you start dancing, you feel good. I want to do that again.
And you get the trumpets up an octave at the end.
And you get the trumpets. And we got to use in that song, to bring the Boingo thing a little closer. Sluggo, Sam Phipps from Boingo, and their current new guy who's been there, 15 years, Brian?
Yeah, the new guy.
The new guy, been there 15, Brian Swartz, both extraordinary talents who were never satisfied until they were satisfied. Let me do it again. And it was just so much fun working with them, Steve wrote very challenging things for them to play. And they understood what we were going for.
Uh,
And everyone that we've played this song for, to a person, someone comes by my studio or Steve's, hey, check this thing out. I mean, everyone has the same reaction, which is why we ended up putting it as the first song in the sequence. It just really feels like, hey, these guys are having a good time.
yeah, well, that sums it up right there, a good time. But experimental comes naturally to you guys, given your background. I mean, Oingo Boingo was pretty experimental at times. And was it you or your brother who worked with Captain Beefheart?
I did. My
Yeah,
brother before me, and then I did. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty experimental right
Yeah,
there.
I mean, where Steve and I came from, time wise, if you sounded like someone else, you were not doing your job. You were in violation,
Uh-huh.
and you probably wouldn't get signed if you sounded like something else. Well, we already have that, and now it seems what prevails is you have to fit a genre. You have to fit into some kind of notion of what people think. Someone asked me, as a matter of fact, not long ago, well, what do you guys sound like? What I said, I haven't the foggiest. What genre? That's what it was. What genre?
Yeah.
I haven't the foggiest. Why would I know that? First of all, I'm too close to it. Secondly, is there a genre that does represent what we are other than experimental pop? I don't know, guitar. I don't know. What would you call us, Mike?
Oh, don't do that.
Good. Well, that's the point, because I don't
Don't
think
do that there. That's a good
That's a
genre.
good answer. Yeah, don't do that, because we don't want to be put someplace. Now, there's a danger, as we know, in marketing. How do you market something that sort of defies easy description?
Sure.
That's your job. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we're gonna go to a commercial now because it's radio time, and we're gonna hear one of these songs, uh, "Where Do We Belong?" We're gonna hear it on the way out, and we're hearing another one coming back in. So take a listen to "Where Do We Belong?" Where do we belong? And Bearing All is the name of the band, and if it's a band, and we have to get back to that name anyway in a minute. So we'll see you guys on the other side of the commercial. This is Mike Gormley, and this is the Mike Gormley Show. Thanks for being here.